name is Nana Sakwao, and this is PM Express. Stay tuned, we're going to talk numbers. Hello again, and let me introduce from my far left, and I have Mr. Fred Moore, who is the CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, on my far left. And then to my immediate left, as the new, congratulations, the new president of the Chartered Institute of Accountants, Professor KB Omani Entry. Exactly. Prof, welcome, my brothers, and big congratulations. But Prof, what fresh ideas do you bring on board?
Wonderful. We have something to give to the Institute. In my investiture speech, it was just one page, but it was loaded. When I see that we have to make the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana relevant to its members, to its students, to industry, to commerce, to the public sector, to the civil society, and to the government. Yeah. And by this, it's going to be a lot of advocacy. Our voice is now going to be heard. And as I said in my investiture speech, I'm coming with agenda for change. And that chartered accountants will be heard. Wow. Will be heard. When it comes to the economy, and we're talking about money, it has to be less. And we have to be able to come up with suggestions that will help what I call inclusive growth of the economy. And that is what we're going to do.
Prof, are you not, I mean, I applaud you, but are you not scared of labels? Because, you know, we have a culture where as soon as you speak the truth, whoever it goes against jumps at you, oh, they are on the other side. Would you be able to say, to hell with you, this is the truth?
Well, if you are an accountant worth your salt, and I always tell my students, first you have to have the wisdom of Solomon, the braveness of David, and of course, the calmness of Job. I mean, if you don't have that, you can't be a good accountant, because you must be independent, and you must say it as it is. You don't have to color it. I know, well, a lot of people who say that, no, for me, I don't want to be involved in, you know, it is be politics, or people will be talking about me, especially social commentators who will start labeling me. I believe that it's a time we change. Why is that our voice have not been heard? Because we've been too quiet. And we need to actually come out there, because we need to protect the public. That should be our role. The public interest should be our role as an accountant. And I believe that with my counsel, that is the agenda that we have.
You see, because sometimes we hear big numbers and percentages and this and that, and then from the layman point of view, you are all blown apart and you're trying to decipher, you know, how much percentage should then go where and this and that. And I think it's well within the premise to say, no, that's false. If this is it, then this should be declared, you know, for the, I mean, like the oil and stuff like that, these numbers were produced and that number and this figure and this. I'm sure the accountant should be able to say, if what you're saying is right, then there should be 10 cedis in the pot and not 8 cedis. And I think the citizen would really appreciate something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there has to be what I call high quality reporting. Talking about corporate reporting. And if you talk about high quality reporting, it means you must have followed the basic tenets of accountancy, following the various standards that guides our work. And if you do that, you should be able to say that, yes, it is this. I mean, I'm not saying that you should be the magician who crystal ball, but at least the figure that is in front of you, it should make some kind of meaning. Because for me, as an accountant, figures talk. Figures talk. And therefore, if the figures are not meaningful or reasonable, they will talk. When it gets to any other third party, he will see that there's something wrong with the figures. And as accountants, it is high time we protect that. And that is why I'm saying that together with the council, we need to do a lot of education. We need to come out this time and make sure that we can help the government. I mean, if we look at the current situation, who can help better? It's accountants. And I believe that we occupy strategic positions in the economy. And if we are able to bring to bear the training that we've had, it will go a long way to see the better Ghana that we are talking about.
Fred, there you are, you're earning your money peacefully, you're going to your work, you're auditing your account and making your money, and there comes this revolutionary, wise Solomon, brave David, and a calm Job who says, enough is enough. We need to now tackle the nation and also pay our quota. And these are hostile territory where, Joe Blocks will call from Adabraka, and you're thinking, do I need all this? But he's your leader and he's saying, this is where we're going. Change is not, easy. I mean, it's the other accountants saying, well, it's time to follow our leader on this path, or what's the...
Of course, we voted for him to be our leader. We believe in him to lead us to the promised land, if I could put it that way. In terms of Joe Bloggs or anybody asking the question, is this the right thing to do? I think we have to have the wisdom of our conviction in what we do. And if we know that what we're doing is right, and it can help Ghana. And I think that is the most important thing. If every one of us do our bit to help the nation, the success of the nation will go a long way. And that is what the president, the council members, and the institute want to achieve for the country. There's a lot that I think the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana can do. You might ask, why haven't you done it in 50 years?
That's my next question, so let's just go ahead.
Why haven't you done it in 50 years? We all know the problems and the turbulences and the waves Ghana has gone through since independence. And until recently, press freedom was a thing of, was the gold dust. Now we've got press freedom. What I think the Institute needs to try and instigate and succeed in doing within either the 2 years or start the blocks is that we have financial and economic freedom for our country. I think that is so important that we cannot afford not to do it.
I am very glad, and I'm really, hoping that you will champion this cause. And somewhere within the interview, I'll bring some analogy, and then we'll see how the accounting side would work. But I am so horrible when it comes to figures. I'm one of those people who are just petrified of figures and won't even attempt to know whether I can do it or not. Who is best placed to be an accountant?
You don't have to necessarily be a superhuman being. People are scared of mathematics. But today, what do we see? We see a lot of ladies taking commanding heights when it comes to mathematics. And we see a lot of our ladies in the universities coming out as first class in accounting programs. To be a good accountant, you need to be a very focused and calm person. Somebody who can sit, listen, observe, and actually digest things. Because a lot of people have come to accountancy with a very different background. Not necessarily started accountancy with secondary school, whatnot. No, some of them midway through their career as management or human resources, look, let me divert to accountancy. Because what you need is a lot of concentration. What you need is the person that can really listen. What you need, the person that can really do analysis. And I believe that every human being can do analysis. The figures should not scare you, because the moment you are able to understand the basic tenets of accountancy, from where we started from, starting from the equation, you could see that it becomes a two-word. Simply, I always joke with my students that, look, for every debit, there must be a corresponding credit. And if you understand this, and you can maneuver the equation, why can't you do accountancy? So it isn't as strange, as difficult as a lot of people say. And I am happy that today, in most of the universities, we get ladies coming out with first class. And Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana have given all of them a scholarship to pursue our programs. So simply be calm, be focused, be able to digest figures and observe. And of course, the sky. Maybe it's not today, we don't say the sky is the limit. You can go at the heavens.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
I've been telling everybody how superhuman accountants are, and he's just blown it wide open.
Friend, one thing the students complain is that, like those who've already passed through, makes the exam so hard that you don't get people coming through. It's like they're blocking the chances, creating some artificial shortage so that you can cream as much as possible before you let few in. How true is this story?
That's probably one of the false information that has been around, and it's been around for a long time. There's a number of reasons why that has persisted for that time, because in 1969 there was only one person that qualified. In 1979, there was only 3 people that qualified. And that gives the impression that the course is difficult. However, in 2012, in 2012-13, over 500 people qualified. This year, we've just done our graduation, and we've graduated over 200 people. So the myth of the past of one person, 2 people, and I actually have heard that the person who passed in 69 was invited to the Flaster House at the time, which was a big deal because there was one person passing. A number of reasons why that has happened. Years gone by, there were a number of people were scared of numbers, like you said, and not many people went into accounting. The institute has also grown up from that time to now. And now there's a lot of first-class graduates who are coming in, who are being offered scholarship to pursue the course. And therefore, they're coming in with a little bit more higher intellect to be able to pursue the course much more easily. I know personally, and at least 10 people from the top of my head who've done the course in less than 2 years. I've actually got one lady in my office, Rachel, who did the course after Legon. It took her 2 years to do the course.
Chartered.
Chartered. She's now got qualified. You need the experience. Because it's a professional course, you need to do the examination, and once you've done the examination, you need 3 years practical experience before you can be called a chartered accountant.
For me, basically, the issue was lack of tuition. We had few universities, University of Ghana, and University of Cape Coast, and recently KN University. So tuition was not there. And accountancy is a professional program. And therefore, it's a lot more application than simple recall. So if you just memorize and you believe that you're going to pour it back and you're going to pass, no. You need to be able to learn the principles and apply to business situations. Because whole business is going to be in your hand. You are going to be the DNA of a business. And therefore, if you don't understand how it works, you cannot. So because of that, the tuition wasn't there, but they want to pass because people are getting jobs and they rush in and write. I have been the chairman of the examination committee for the last, say, 6 years. And I look at the examination and we make sure it is well monitored to be at the level of what we expect from a good accountant coming out. So the moderation is very strong. And we make sure that we remove anything that would be what they call tricks or what. We don't want to trick anybody. But we want you to be able to pick the principles and apply to business setting. And if you are not able to do that, that's why I said you have to be focused, you have to be able to observe, you have to be able to digest situation. because it's not a recall examination time where you go and you memorize something and you write it back. No, you will not pass.
Is it A, B, or C?
Yes, you will not.
So, I mean, what are the job opportunities out there?
The sky is the limit. In this country, for example, a number of the big institutions are all run by chartered accountants. You've got Barclays Bank, you've got Commercial Bank, you've got HFC, you've got Zenith, you've got Goyle, you've got Shell, you've got the Securities and Stock Exchange. All of those MDs in those companies or CEOs are chartered accountants. Then you've got the Deputy Director Generals, you've got the Controller, you've got the Auditor General, all of them. We've even got ministers, we've got parliamentarians. So the sky, basically, for any young person who wants to be a professional accountant, the sky is the limit. And then you've got people like Professor Manientri and Professor Mafo at UCC, and the number of the deans in the business school are also chartered accountants. So 80% of all CFOs, that's the Chief Finance Officer or the Director of Finance in Ghana, are chartered accountants. So if you're a young person and you're coming out of university or a tertiary institution and you think that accounting is a profession for you, I would say grab it with both hands and jump at it, because you have got great opportunity. But not everybody can become an accountant, because there are other professions also. But I think it is one of the most wonderful experiences you can get, because gone were the days where accountants were at the back office counting money, recording information and not doing anything else. Now accounting is our business leaders. Our mantra is be a CA, be a business leader. And a number of people have proved that.
Do you need to remarket yourself? I mean, is it time to remarket yourself? It's a frightening area. It's like a no-go area, and there's just a few people who venture to go into it. I mean, do you have to, make it so that people think, oh, it's after all, it's
attractive.
Attractive.
I'm sure Prof will have something to say about that. But any company worth its salt needs to constantly review where they're going and how to get there. And one way of getting to that place is remarketing yourself, repositioning yourself, and remaking the opportunities available. One, for example, I don't think in the past we've done TV programs before. We've just sat in the back office and hoped that everything will go well. In the last 2 years, we've done a lot of press adverts in the newsprint. We're now doing radio and TV, and all of that is to promote the institute and to give people the opportunity. We've now set up a business development unit at the office, and their job is to market to every to every university. And we don't only go to the business schools, we go to the related business schools, and then we go to the social science schools, because there are a number of students now and people who are working who did social science, saw something as accounting as a profession, got in and have done very well for themselves.
Prof,
yeah. We are now even going down to the high schools.
Okay.
To sell accountancy profession to them. One good thing that is going to happen May, June is we're going to launch a new examination syllabus, which has input of industry, commerce, in the public sector. I'm talking of the employers. And we are going to launch it in such a way that people will see the relevance of accountancy, and therefore how attractive it is. We also going to set up I call a special project where we'll be linking up with the accountancy lecturers or teachers in both universities and polytechnics, so that now and then we can meet them, understand some of their challenges and how even they are delivering the programs. Sometimes people, the way they behave in the classroom, say, oh, I'm not interested, I won't go there. So we want to help them to understand how you deliver a program. We're also going to come up with what I call a structure, a common body of knowledge, a capstone structure for accountancy program, which can be used at the university level, both undergraduate and graduate programs. So for all this, we want to make it easier for people to understand that, oh, we have so much that we can learn from. It isn't a new thing. Unlike the past, where very few people actually have access to some of these things. So that is a new kind of twist that we bring into the whole thing. So that people would now find it easy to understand what accountancy is all about and what kind of profession they can enter into and the prospects of accountants.
I'm going to take a break here. Definitely there's a new king on the block, isn't it? I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, I'm going to put my question on board and let's see what the accountancy answer is to it. Stay tuned. Well, happy Golden Jubilee to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Ghana. And they're here trying to take the fear out of me that, you know, and I was like, why don't you even try your hands in accountancy? Maybe I'll be good at it. I'm talking to the new president, Professor Kebio Manientri, and Mr. Fred Moore, all chartered accountants, obviously. But just before wanting a break, since now they're going to help the nation, I'm going to put this scenario and see what the accountant would say. So we are running a company, and I'm the CEO of the company. So I decide to borrow 3 billion to do a gas project and a road project and some other projects. We then have, you know, oil, which gives us 550 million a year. All the projects we're going to do will last more than 3 years. So my suggestion is that instead of borrowing 3 billion, which I'm going to pay interest on, as part of the deal, they're not even going to give me the money. I always need to present my project document to say, look, I've done all my due diligence on this, so now give me the money before they give me the money. So they're probably keeping the money in their savings account and earning interest and charging me interest. And for any time I don't go and get the money, I have to pay 1% interest on top of this 3 billion. And I have oil that will give me 550 million. So, you know, as CEO, I'm suggesting that in that case, why don't I borrow money from the oil? Because the gas, obviously, when I make it, I'll sell it and then pay back. And because it's going to last more than 3 years, by the time every project is finished, I would have saved up enough millions, you know, to do my project and eventually toll the roads and everything to, you know, pay back where I borrow from the oil money. So as chartered accountant, do you advise the state that, listen, no, save your oil money and borrow, or do you say, no, there's no need, you have the money, use your money and pay back?
Well, let me first of all, the scenario that you're talking about is if the oil money is not guarded by any law, then why do you allow it to sit there? But if what my mind is telling me is oil money that is in the heritage fund, which all of us have agreed that, hey, we would invest this in some sort of higher yielding investment so that when our children come, they'll be able to know that, hey, there was some oil that our forefathers were able to strike, and they left us some. And this money that they left us was not just lying there idle, but it has been invested in a high yielding something that will give us something for the future. On that note, that means that you are guided by law. And then by law, you won't be able to touch it. Some people are saying, oh, let us just go and put our hand there because it makes sense. Why should it sit there? Why today we are suffering? But I think we could think about it another way. What can we do innovatively today to make sure that we solve our challenges, and so that at the end of the day, our children will know that we manage resources well, we even left them something that they'll be proud of us. Because the business that you want to go into, have you looked at the risk aspect? I mean, risk is so key. What about if you take the oil money, and this is a money that has been put there by law, dump it in your...
Well, I mean, you are accountant. Normally, with infrastructure like that, the risk level is quite low. I mean, if you are going to construct a 200-kilometer road and toll it, I mean, The only risk is pilferation. If you're able to check that, you're guaranteed your money over 25 years or 30 years. You toll a road. If you build a gas infrastructure and sell the gas to a Sogle or whatever it is, they will get the gas and pay you. The risk is quite low with those sort of infrastructure, I am guessing.
It's okay with the assumption, the scenario you've created. You've created a low risk business. That's what you're saying. There's no big infrastructure that is low risk, because the development period has got a number of risks associated with it. If you could have a situation where the plant is dumped there, then the risk of development disappears, because the risk of development is high, because things can go wrong. You can plan that you build in 20 days, it could rain for 3 of them, and all of a sudden you haven't got your structure there. In terms of the business model that you're talking about, one of the early things I was told by one of my lecturers was that every question, it depends on a number of factors. You've given a scenario, but there are other factors that can also impinge on that. And I think Mr. President has mentioned some of them. The others are also, if you believe capital borrowing is a critical part of running a business. Most successful companies have got a gearing, and gearing is basically borrowing. Right? And if I wanted to bombard you and your listeners, I would use MPV, cash flow, discounting, and all. But I'm not going to say that.
We beg you.
I'm not going to say
that.
But basically, borrowing is part of good governance, good business. And it's only good if you know that the borrowing amount you're borrowing will generate long-term returns. And like you said, gas, once it's built, will provide a long-term return. And therefore, borrowing to do that type of business is not a bad thing to do in itself. But the other options, the other scenarios have not been gathered, have not been talked about.
Fred, if I sent you to go and find me $3 billion, the guy says, yes, I'll give you $3 billion, but I'll keep the money in my account. You provide, statement by statement or analysis by analysis. Like, look, I've done my feasibility studies on the gas. It will cost me X amount, and then I give it to you. For any reason, if you don't come and take the money, I charge you 1% interest. Plus, the money is in my savings account. I mean, would you,
go for it?
Go for it.
Like, if I could start by saying it depends, right? Because if I know the business I'm going into and the long-term returns, which is the critical factor, the long-term return of any investment is more important than what is gained. Because the scenario you're painting is that the guy who is lending me the money is making a lot of money from me either doing the business or not doing the business, by the interest he charged for taking the money and by the interest he charged for not taking the money.
And for keeping the money.
For keeping the money. What I'm looking at is my long-term investment. So if my long-term investment takes me to a position of where I want to be, then what is stopping me from doing that when he can also make some money out of it? So I think it's a position that we need to be careful about in the way we analyze it.
Now that you are, going to help the nation, which is very good, and we applaud you. We want the education from the accountant side. I mean, borrowing, and constantly the world is telling us that, guys, you're borrowing too much.
Right.
And the amount of money you make as a state and what you're borrowing, very soon, you will tip the scales. So, being that we haven't done preparations for this road, the railway, and completed the gas thing, if you do this deal, you then get locked in where year in, year out, you're giving the guy $50–60 million because you're not ready.
Really, yeah.
So, and you have money that you put in heritage fund. So what will then happen is the kids will come and take the heritage fund and go and pay for all the debts that we've piled up for them. And will be at cost zero.
That's why I said to you that the scenario you painted, I tried to answer the scenario you painted. You've created another scenario. That begs the question, you need to do another analysis of that information. Because if you tell me that your gearing is too high or your borrowing is too high, then it doesn't make, you have to be careful the borrowing again. But if you're asking me the question that at the point the gearing is X and we need money to do an investment Y, is that a wise thing to do? I cannot give you a categorical answer unless I know all the factors around it and I'm able to do analysis, like the prof said, to be able to determine whether what you're doing is right or wrong. So one of the things, if I might chip this in, one of the things we talked about in a conference last week. On Thursday, Thursday, was sustainable debt management, which the whole conference agreed was a big enough topic that we need to take it out again as a public lecture to try and digest it, analyze the national debt, to be able to come up with concrete options that will support any government in power to take us further than we want to be. In the morning, we talked about restoring the nation's economy, the accountant's perspective. And the speakers were brilliant. They actually painted an Ethiopia nation that everybody who sat in the conference, including myself, will want to live in that country. And if we can create the options that could take us to that Ethiopia situation, or even close to it, we would have done a great job.
You know, basically, borrowing is not a bad idea.
No, borrowing is not a bad idea.
But what do you
And I was just, my example is based on Ghana and the Chinese loan. This example is based on Ghana. And I've always argued that I just feel it was an unnecessary borrowing. The project by the nature is fantastic. Build a road, build railway, build your gas. However, because the state hasn't done all the feasibility studies, I would then say, use internal money, bits and pieces, because it wasn't a project which you go to sleep and all of a sudden it was there. And since you're building it in phases, then use up your money in phases so that you not, end up in debt. And then when you are done, use the, proceeds to pay back where you borrowed the money from.
We don't have the whole picture in front of us, but what you should be looking at is when we borrow and we put it in particular projects, are we going to get value for money?
In this case, yes. If we had done our feasibility studies.
If we're going to get value for money, then going for loans is not a bad idea. If we are not going to get value for money, that is where the challenge is. I spoke to Botswana president, former president, Moga or something, and he said, when he was president, what he said that I'm going to make sure that I open up the villages with roads, tied roads here and there, because businesses would naturally sprang up. And he spent a lot of money doing that. And at the end of the day, what happened? People moved from the cities and put their businesses in the various communities because they have good access roads. So basically, what has he done? There is what we call a multiplier effect of the kind of expenditure that he has done. Now, if government has done analysis, I'm not privy to that, and knows that, hey, if we open up this particular area, what could happen is that people would choke in a crowd, would even move there. Then, of course, the value to the nation is going to be great, and it will worth whatever interest and whatnot that we are going to pay. Now, the fact that the money is there doesn't mean that, I have money, so I just want to go for it. Look, sometimes you need to balance your equity and debt capital. It gets to a particular level, which accountants will call a particular leverage, which you could say, no, I will not borrow again, because it's too much. Has the country done that? I don't know. Now, fine. If this heritage fund, which is there, we do not have any purpose for it in terms of the whole concept, and maybe putting it in a particular investment, and it's just sitting down there and people are just looking at it, then I would say, hey, the first choice is go and pick it because it's not productive. But if government have actually invested, I don't know, in some high yielding something, then you need to do a cost and benefit analysis. And once you do that, then you can sit down and say, hey, maybe I can borrow, or maybe we could go for this money. Then you come up with a whole paper developing the scenarios so that you and me would understand. Because I believe the Heritage Fund, if you want to touch it, you have to go back to the people, to actually change the laws and whatnot. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done. It isn't a simple fact that, oh, the money is there, borrowing brings interest and other costs, so the best option is going for the money. No. I mean, if you do that simplistic analysis, you will be way out. You will need to actually sit down and do a conscious effort in terms of analyzing, when I borrow and I put it into particular use, what are the multiplier effects that I'm going to get out of it? Because sometimes the multiplier effect is that it touches several areas. And at the end of the day, the borrowing is good. So those things need to be done. And I am not privy to what is happening there, and I'm sure you are not privy to what is happening there, and that creates a bit of a challenge for us.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at the chartered accountant's role in a developing economy. It must be a very crucial role, but what is it? Stay tuned. Well, I'm having an interesting conversation with my accountant here. You never know, make the next show, by the time I come, I'll be a full-blown accountant. But we want to find out the role of a chartered accountant in a developing economy. And I'll start with you, Professor.
Yes. Developing economy, what are the challenges? Let's look at that first. One, when it comes to manufacturing in terms of value addition is nil. The private sector does not respond to economic framework because the framework is probably not even there. Foreign exchange is a challenge. Then you have low savings. And then you have a situation where debt that we're talking about, both domestic and international, is way out there. So you need an accountant who will be able to create a sound environment for businesses to thrive, for the government to be able to know where they are going. And that is where we get accountants in various private businesses. And today, what we always call upon them is to be able to deliver high-quality corporate reporting. Because it is by getting it right in terms of what they are doing, the where from and how spend aspects of funds, that they'll be able to take a decision that will develop that business. And when that business develops, the government could be able to get their taxes, people will get jobs, and it will have a spill over on this inflation and whatnot that we're talking about. Take this country, for instance. We import everything, including toothpick. Whenever I go to the restaurants and they give it to, I get mad. So can't we give a head start for some businesses, and I'm talking of small and medium enterprises? Various countries that have developed on the back of small and medium enterprises. The accountant is needed to create that investment environment, to make sure that, hey, we have people that will be able to keep the purse well and make sure that the business grow. So the accountant has such a big role, and I'm talking about the chartered accountant. And if it is Ghana, I'm talking about the use of chartered accountant Ghana. If you don't have anybody as a member, then he has a problem. Then we as accountants also should make sure that we become the conscience of the nation. And in fact, most of our accountants are indeed conscious of the nation. They've done very well. And I can name Abe Kandapa. He was chairman of Public Accounts Committee. I think everybody applauded him for what he did. Now, if it wasn't him, there were a number of things that you and me wouldn't have probably known, because the auditors, the Auditor General's report, how many people will have access to that. So accountants must be a good gatekeeper, and we are good gatekeepers, to make sure that we can moderate if I say we can remedy entirely corruption, no, I mean, it's started from even Adam. But we can moderate it. So there's so much that we can do. When it comes to raking in revenue mobilization, accountants playing their role as tax practitioners, tax advisors, and of course working in the Ghana Revenue Authority, help the country to be able to get a relevant revenue that they need to be able to run the country. So there's so much that we do as accountants.
Fred, so you're moving away from, I need my auditing down, let me just look for, that's the time I look for an accountant, but I think your view, we have to view much broader than that.
Yeah, exactly. And like Prof said, the accountants has got a lot to offer. And if you look at any developed nation, accountancy and the National Institute plays a major part in the development of that nation. And that cannot be any different from Ghana. And that is what the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana is so pivotal if we are going to have that financial management and the economic development that we all crave for. In terms of accountancy and accountants and what they can do, they can tell you where exactly you are in terms of your financial information so that you can make the long-term decisions. I think Prof has covered all the areas that you could possibly have thought of. But the key thing is that where do we want to go? Do we want to be as developed as some of the other nations?
I mean, can accountants come and suggest to the country that, listen, per our analysis, let us put money in coffee, or per analysis, let's put money in education, or let's put, I mean, can you suggest something for the nation that, listen, for the numbers that we are looking at today and the projections there, put money here, it's going to work? I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's why I said we're going to have some special projects. One of them is we're going to have economic and governance advisory committee. We'll be looking at the performance of the government, the public financial management system on a quarterly basis. It's going to be accountants in conjunction with economists sitting down, looking at this, and then having a paper, a communique to the government that, hey, going this way, we think that we have challenges. It's time that you look at these options. That is how we want to engage the government from now going. Yes, the accountant can come and make that forthright suggestion, looking at the figures and the analysis that have been done. What is important is once it has been done, whether it will be taken. That is very, very crucial. Well, we all know the story of some government that say, well, whatever you said is good, but yeah,
again, Prof, let me stay with you. From a non-accounting perspective, I find that as a nation, we spread our funds too thin, and therefore everybody builds a foundation and is waiting. And then you come and then you build a lentil and then you're waiting. By the time it's ready to get the roof, the lentil is broken and then you're back. I mean, are you going to give us confidence and listen, go into this, go into it big time, think big, will the accountants give us that?
Yes, I mean, it is high time as a country we look at long-term plan and focus on the few that we can handle. I want to give the example of Brazil. They focus on education, health, and infrastructure. And today they are holding the World Cup. If Ghana, looking at our resource base or revenue mobilization, we sit back and say, hey, if we invest in this particular area, even if it is one, and we can do it well, for me, if we can open up roads all over, so that it takes you just 2.5 hours to Kumasi or 30 minutes here and there, we will not have problem of congestion in Accra. Water challenges will be gone. Electricity challenges will be solved because very few will be using it in Accra. But at the same time, we are going to have people having impact on areas and opening up areas. Everything is clustered in the capital city. It's not good. And that is why some countries decide to build another capital. I don't think that is necessary. But just open up. So we need to concentrate on the few that we can. And we need to do that by having a consensus long-term program. Mauritius Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister is coming, or whether he has come to the country already. Mauritius, they have a long-term plan. Whether Party A comes, that is the plan. The only way that makes you different from another party is how you prosecute the plan.
We ran out of time, Mr. President. Let me still stay with you. What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for as a president who came with a change agenda, who made sure that accountants' voices are now heard and heard clearly on issues. I want to be remembered as a president who actually ensured the most important thing, how we conduct our elections for council have changed in the digital age. People can vote online, in their homes, offices, in the air, and overseas, so that we brought the base. A lot more people, come to vote for their president. We seem to franchise a lot of people. I want to be remembered for that. I also want to be remembered for making sure that members now see the institute of much value to them, value to the members, value to the students, and that they see that, hey, there's a new brand, and they should be proud of the brand, the ICAG brand. That is what I want to be remembered for.
Well, thank you very, very much, gentlemen. It's been exciting. Just before I did the show, my friend says, who are you talking to? I said, accountants. Oh, it's going to be boring. You see, it's not boring. And as I said, tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. But those of you who follow me on Joy FM, tomorrow on, Thursday, let me say Thursday, 2 p.m., that's my opinion, and I am saying that, and you can prove me wrong, that any society, whatever respect and the value they place on their teacher, is direct and equal to the society. If you disrespect the teacher, the society is disrespected. It's an interesting piece. Tune in at 2 p.m. and listen. Thank you very much for watching.